If you have an enemies to lovers trope fixation, that is super basic. In this sense, and I guess also in this sense. But I don't mean that pejoratively, because looking down on people because they like something which is popular is some painfully insecure behaviour and you might want to look to them. And enemies to lovers where two characters start out hating each other and end up falling in love is popular for a reason. Well, I say a reason. I mean lots of reasons, many of which are basic to good storytelling. So let's get to it. Conflict. One of the most basic, I swear I'll stop now, elements to storytelling is conflict. Characters want something, but they can't get it, they try to get it, they probably fail a bunch, they eventually succeed, hooray. Setup and payoff achieved, and the greater the struggle, the more satisfying the resolution. Luke Skywalker wants to blow up the Death Star to defeat the Empire. Harry Potter wants to keep the Philosopher's Stone away from Voldemort. Sarah wants to get her brother back. And obviously you can't have fight scenes without conflict, so this is a particular interest of mine. So two people who may be decent, or at least decent-ish characters, in conflict with each other and struggling to understand the other person's point of view, and possibly even doing bad things to the other person for reasons that they think are good, all excellent conflict-related stuff. People on opposite sides of a war coming to understand each other and the other person's viewpoint, excellent conflict, satisfying resolution. This is also true in enemies to lovers sister trope, rivals to lovers, where two people are in conflict because they're on opposite sides of an issue, or they're in academic competition, or they're on opposing sports teams. It's less life or death dramatic, but it's still fun, realistic in a lot more situations, and satisfying when it's resolved. Tension and build-up. I already said the greater the struggle, the more satisfying the resolution. And while it's true that there's only so long that you can string your audience along for before they get bored or frustrated, tension does make for a compelling story. 300,000 word slow burn fanfic? Anyone? It may be that you, the reader or the viewer, are in no doubt that everything will absolutely work itself out eventually, but it's not knowing when it will work itself out or how it will work itself out that creates that tension. One of my favourite relationships in any book series is Toby and Tybalt from the October Day series by Sean and Maguire, and a lot of my favourite moments from that relationship are the ones which balance on a knife edge, the ones where there is tension, where something might happen, but you genuinely don't know what it is. It could go either way. It makes the resolution more satisfying if you tease it beforehand, if you make it seem like there could be resolution earlier, but something gets in the way. And that something could be as simple as the characters just aren't ready for it yet. Those glimpses of conflict resolution encourage your reader to keep reading or your viewer to keep viewing. Moments where there is almost an understanding and then it is snatched cruelly away from you are really frustrating, but if you do them right, they are very compelling. They encourage you to keep going because you want to know if it will work itself out in the end. That's one reason that flirty fights are so popular and why they can work so well. They're a release valve, although usually a temporary one, for the tension that is built up between two characters in the story. They give you a hint of the resolution in the hope that you will keep going so that you will find out what happens at the end. Are these two characters going to get together at the end of the movie? I mean, yes, of course they are, but how are they going to do it? That's the question that keeps us watching. Or at least the question that keeps us watching them. Character growth. The greater the struggle, the more satisfying the resolution, and the greater the change, the more satisfying the resolution too. Up to a point. Stories in which characters have to change dramatically on an emotional and practical level are very compelling, and going from I hate you to I love you and would die for you is a pretty big change. Avatar: The Last Airbender is known for being a brilliant show. It's also known for having a fandom that was absolutely wild with debate as to whether Aang and Katara or Zuko and Katara was the superior ship. I mean, I'm personally very fond of the idea that one can love one's friends as deeply as one loves one's romantic partners, but you know, there is a reason for all that alternate universe Zutara fanfic. People do love this trope. See also all that Rey Kylo Ren fanfic, although to be fair, that one is a little more canonically backed. That degree of change, though, is one of the reasons it can be very difficult to write enemies to lovers convincingly. Or even just stories where bad people become better people, because if we're not emotionally invested, if we don't like the character, if we don't like the direction the story is going in, then we'll just drop it. Redemption arcs are really powerful and great in concept, but if you're not emotionally invested in the character already, they tend to fall flat. Equity and power. One of my favourite reasons for character growth in enemies to lovers is that the enemies challenge each other to be better. Which is also why rivals to lovers is my preferred trope, incidentally. Someone who is constantly keeping you on your toes, either verbally or physically, will mean that you're on your mettle. You are always prepared, you are at the top of your game. Not that I'm competitive, obviously. But that only really works when you perceive the characters as equals, and now we're into the stuff that I find really interesting. Novels invite you to empathize with their characters, particularly their viewpoint characters. They invite you, should you choose, to imagine yourself as that person, and while that means you are going to experience a lot of very dramatic and bad things, albeit secondhand, you also get the secondhand joy or satisfaction that comes from learning a new skill, or defeating an enemy, or any of the things that the characters do. If you've ever wondered why enemies to lovers is particularly popular among young women, I would say there are probably a lot of reasons, but this is the one that stands out to me. As I said in the short that I made about this, you aren't enemies with a goldfish or a baby, unless you're Voldemort. You're enemies with someone you consider a threat. You may hate them, you may fear them, but you take them seriously. Being a teenager means feeling awkward and out of place and like you don't fit in anywhere and like people aren't treating you properly and are disrespecting you because you're not a child, but then again you're not quite an adult either. Spoiler, I'm 35 and there are some people in life who will just try and treat you like a child no matter what age you are. It's just something you have to develop mechanisms to deal with. Sorry. But with enemies to lovers, here is a story where the main character, who is sort of a stand-in for you to varying degrees, is taken very seriously, is respected as a threat, is feared but also loved. Who doesn't want to be taken seriously and respected? Who doesn't want to be seen as competent? I mean, yes, it is straight up wish fulfillment. You too can have a partner who is impressed by you, who sees you as an equal. Frankly, who doesn't love some wish fulfillment? And also, I would encourage you not to settle for anyone who isn't impressed by you and doesn't see you as an equal. Just throwing that out there. And leading on from that, last but not least, deep understanding. On top of equity, on top of interesting conflicts, on top of character growth and the appeal of redemption arcs, on top of all of that, we have the to lovers part of enemies to lovers. Because the appeal of the trope is not just being taken seriously and not just being thought of as dangerous and not just having someone who treats you as an equal and takes you seriously and yada yada. It's also someone who not only does all of those things, but falls in love with you as well. It's the idea that a character can be deeply and intensely loved by someone who already knows all of the bad things about them. I mean, to be so irresistible that even people who hate you find something lovable about you. Wish fulfillment on steroids, man. I love it. Character A sees character B and all the terrible things that B has done, some of them to A, but can't help but fall in love with B anyway because they know them so completely and what they know is so deeply and intensely lovable. There's no need to hide the bad or shameful parts of yourself from an enemy to lover because they've already seen them. It's completely brutal, but it's also searingly honest, and that craving to know and be known and be loved in spite of or because of that knowing is a very, very human one. Enemies to lovers is a trope which, like all tropes, can be good or bad or indifferent. But because it contains so many elements which can be key to really good storytelling, compelling empathetic characters, equity, respect, desire, redemption, an arc, it's never going away.